Hello again, everyone, and welcome once again to another edition of Two Men in Black and White, an honest conversation. And I'm joined by my partner in crime, Brock Ganeles, live outside in New York City. I'm Mark Hayes, just north of the ATL, shorty down here in the dirty, dirty South. All right, let's get right into it. It's another day of wondering what in the hell this guy is doing to our country. And it seems to be that he is hell bent on destroying our economy with these tariffs. More set to kick in tonight at midnight. The latest installment will affect prices for consumer goods. What is it? You look at Walmart, Home Depot, and other big box stores, 3 out of the 4 products come from China. That means he's basically instituted a tariff or a tax on American citizens largely across the board. The rich don't feel it, Brock, but, regular everyday people sure are going to.
It's gonna be some sticker shock, right? I don't get the sense it's happened yet in, sort of a large scale manner, but like every price is just gonna be higher pretty much across the board. I mean, it's gonna, so far it's been the markets that have reacted, right? Basically, Wall Street's reacted, not Main Street yet. And certainly not anyone who's like living close to paycheck, where this is just going to be crushing, right? They're just going to have to buy
Right,
less stuff across
right.
the board. And the GDP has to go down. The chatter is, business executives are saying they already feel like we're in a recession. Just the numbers haven't been tallied up yet. But like we're almost in instant recession. The question I have for you is like, what are we really trying? What is Trump really trying to get out of this beyond having every country have to come to him begging for, a special deal?
Yeah, I can't figure it out. Like, the only thing I can figure it out is he's trying to crater the economy. So, these large companies can do stock buybacks, right? And, hope that the market takes off again one day. I mean, what are we down to? What, 15% of the market share? He's lost about $10 trillion worth of like net worth for people and companies. 401ks are now 200 and a halves. I mean, it's a joke. And then he's got his people. See, Brock, but what really hacks me off and why I wanted to talk about the markets and get your insight there is because the he's got his people out there trying to tell the American people that this is a good thing, and we got to trust his instincts, and that he absolutely knows he has no clue what he's doing. This is leading us down a path to nowhere. I mean, it makes no sense. We're down to 37,000. We've been hovering in the mid fees, right? The market is down to 37. I know billionaires and millionaires are pissed off about this because you can never be quite sure what's coming back. If you follow Bitcoin, it's taken a big hit. It was up close to $100,000 per coin. It's now down, back in the seas. So, everybody is getting hurt across the board on this. And, the thing about it is, why would you take Trump's word for anything? Like, if he told you if you had a backroom deal with him, why would you take his word? A handshake means nothing to him. Why would you take his word for it? And the fact that he's trying to convince the American people that this is good for us some kind of way, and he's got these morons and sycophants out there doing it for him too, it's just, it should be criminal. It should be criminal at this point because you're stealing.
Yeah. They haven't branded it well. Would they come out with that Panicon? What was that
Yeah,
one liner they're saying? Don't be
yeah.
a
Don't be a
Panicon.
panic.
Don't don't be soft and wimpy and suck it up and take the pain because we're all gonna get a long-term gain out of this.
No,
I
we're
mean,
not.
I don't feel like they've won the messaging war, and it hasn't even really kicked in on sort of day-to-day expenditures yet. I find it funny that Peter Navarro, the tariff like hawk, was just out of jail, and Elon Musk are chirping at each other because Musk is going crazy. He's trying to get the tariffs lifted because Tesla's getting killed, right? So
Right.
he's seeing this hurting him. So it's really interesting. It's funny how your take on it immediately goes to, okay, look, this is going to kill black and brown folks because who live so close on the margins, right? And I look at, right, white guy, right? I look at like the business leaders and like what's going on in the Wall Street point of view of things. And I'm like, the business leaders in America are an absolute joke, right? They all hid under the table like there was a mass shooting going on, right? And none of them said a word. They all went and bent the knee. They all showed up and kissed the ring at the parties in the inauguration and all this and that. None of them spoke a negative word as these tariff chatter was coming into play, even though they all hated it. Like, you think Apple didn't know this was going to kill them? Jamie Dimon just woke up yesterday thinking the tariffs were a bad thing for the economy. None of them said a word. Total silence. So afraid to get a mean tweet. So afraid of getting, having the firing, focused on them. So they all cowered and hid. And Trump just barreled through like the psychopath that he is. And they got nothing from it, right? For all their ass kissing, they got nothing from it. And all I say is the next time someone looks at executive pay, let's just remember what lack of leadership these people really, really deliver.
Oh
Nothing.
my God. Oh my God.
Zero from the business community. Absolute embarrassment.
Right. How about the Treasury Secretary coming out saying, yeah, people that are retiring, they don't really look at their 401k. What are these people talking about?
Yeah,
Like,
because the guys
once a week.
These guys have $500 million in the bank, right? They don't. What person do they even? Who do they talk to that's
Right.
even in their circle that lives a normal life? Right? They have no idea what actually quote people are doing. Right?
Right.
They're just saying shit. They're just saying shit because they know Trump watches a lot of TV and they know they got to say something that makes him look good or feel good in order to keep their job. To be honest, I do not understand why they even want these jobs. They
Right.
all come out looking like buffoons and idiots, and they're all tarnished in the end. But
Yep.
yet they
Or go to jail.
say absurd shit that they know is false. They know they're lying. They make shit up on the fly to get the approval of the worst human being in America.
Right.
Don't understand the game they're playing, but there seems to always be someone lined up to want those seats and play that game. But
Right.
I don't think the American people are going to buy it. The problem is there's not another election for, 2 years for the House and 4 years for Trump. What does he give a shit?
Right. Right. And what happens to the rest of us in the meantime? When we see all this wealth dissipate, right? At some point, it's going to seep into the housing market, right? Like, your houses won't sell, right? People won't be able to get loans, right? And again, lower middle class America, even upper middle class America, right? Because now you got your SUV, you got your home, you got your club membership, you don't have a lot of padding there, right? What is it, like 8% of Americans have 6 months of salary saved, some minuscule number. So, there's not a huge pad for most of America. When you start getting up into the upper crux, that 5% and above, that's a totally different conversation. The rest of us are just trying to figure out how we're going to survive long term. Because, Brock, this thing doesn't look like it's letting up. Like he's backing down.
The job cuts will get to everyone. It'll be managers that get cut. High price people are going to get cut. People are going to lose cushy jobs, cushy high paying jobs, as well as manufacturing jobs and lower paying jobs. It's going to run the gamut. There's going to be pain to go around in a lot of places. This is why, Mark, just to make, a little bit of a segue from the financial carnage and disaster that's unfolding in front of us, is we can't wait 4 years. We cannot survive 4 years ago at the individual level. This is going to be life and death for a lot of people. Not going to be able to afford medicines. Then they cut Medicaid and Medicare. People are going to be dying. So that's literally life and death. And then for, the bigger group of people, it's the quality of life in decline,
right,
along with loss of freedoms and loss of democracy. We can't wait for 4 years. Trump has to be removed from office.
Right.
Immediately. Like the sense of urgency, this gets me a little bit to the protests, right? Which is the last thing we talked about because the protests happened on Saturday. Great turnout. incredibly white crowd, incredibly
Right.
old crowd. A lot of people
Right.
worried about their Social Security because it's life and death to them if that gets cut. How are we going to, from the opposition, the left, the progressives, how are we going to get this sense of urgency to get enough action to get the wheels of motion going for there to be change way before we have another election? Like, we can't, that's assuming there's ever going to be another fair election. We
Right.
can't wait. Like, we have to get out there. So, white people in mass got out there on Saturday. Black people, Latino people, absolutely, let's say, boycotted
Yeah.
to a
Yeah.
certain extent. Maybe
Or
might be the
split.
exact right term. Young people just, I don't even think, knew what was going on. Like,
Right.
they literally, the messaging didn't get to them at all. They did not get the memo at all. The problem is, as I sat back and thought about it, digested a lot of other podcasts and the like, is that the problem with an old white crowd is it's just not high energy enough. It's not high energy. It's not intimidating. It's not like, it's not strong, right? It's easy
Well,
to be discounted.
absolutely. And look at how well those protests went, right? And this is what we've been saying, what Black America has been saying for what, 60 years, most of my lifetime and beyond. That here was this all white crowd, 1,400 cities, right? Signs, horns honking, people, moving down Fifth Avenue in New York City. No police presence. No run ins with the police. No batons, no nightsticks, no dogs, no aggression toward that crowd. Much like January 6th, they just let it happen. And they just took it. I mean, New York City, there was a report that came out. New York City in Manhattan had 44 officers on duty. 44 officers for what? 100,000, 110, 120,000 people?
Sounds high. I think they puffed up that number. I think it was more like 16 officers, maybe they can say 44. Okay, so let's play some scenarios. Okay,
Okay.
the white people come out in mass, and that's a good showing, right? Okay, maybe it opens some eyes. Oh, wow, look, you can tell me, black me, maybe look at all those white people out there.
Right.
Okay, good for them, right? Okay, how many marches do white people have to do before people of color may say, you know what, I'm going to get out there with them? Or is there no number? The messaging, because there was no messaging in these marches. They were just marches. There was no message. There was so many messages that there was no message, right? Like I told you, there was a placard for everything under the sun except DEI, except racism, and maybe,
Anti-racism. Yeah.
and kind of, and almost except climate change.
Yeah.
So I think that the left missed the mark because they don't have a message. And then we can't go on April 17th and not have a message, right? Like, I want pro-immigration, pro-DEI, pro-democracy,
Right.
pro-LGBTQ messaging. Like, I want a living room, culture war. We're a diverse country and we love it, and that's who we are messaging. And white supremacy has no place here, and we're about to steamroll you and get the fuck out of our way because we're coming after you and we're pissed. So it needs to be like an angry message, an aggressive message, and an inclusive message. So to me, if the April 17th marches don't have a message, why would Black, Latino, and young people show up? It's going to just be another white walk, right? It would be like the White Walkers.
No doubt. But I think black people need to hear, brown people need to hear, about some of the living room issues that we have are, of course, the ones that you talked about, but also the ones like I have to have with my son. When you get pulled over by the police and you and your white fiance and your very light-skinned baby are in the car and they ask her if she's okay, you can't get upset. We can
Mhm.
work it out later, right? So
Mhm.
we have to hear about police reform. We have to hear about voter suppression and the Voting Rights Act. The Voting Rights Act has been gutted, Brock. Been
Mhm.
gutted by the Supreme Court that sits in Donald Trump's left cheek pocket,
I
right?
get it. Cash bail, mass incarceration, education, things that actually are affecting people's lives
Right.
and their safety and their kind of comfort level of just walking around in society. And that's where white America missed the mark on the first march, and that's where the left has missed the mark. And I think that's where the political leaders in the Democratic Party have missed the mark. Because no one's saying it. Because I did have a conversation with Hervé today. We'll get him back on offline conversation. I was like, okay, well, okay, I get black people don't want to be out front because you're like, as soon as the police see the black people out front, they're going to come out guns a-blazing, and this
Oh,
is
no
going to
doubt.
be all of a sudden be a firestorm. So I think certainly the messaging from white America has to be, all right, black people, come join us. Stand behind us. We'll be out front.
Right.
We're taking the bullets for you. You're going to be a part of this march, but you know what? You're behind us. We're shielding you. We're walking first.
And Brock, I don't know how many of those white folks walking down Fifth Avenue have the same mindset you have. Because those people walking shoulder to shoulder with you on Saturday are the people that make hiring and firing decisions, are the people who are in charge of DE&I, are the people who mistakenly say someone's name because they didn't take the time to get to know them, the people who are responsible for creating an inclusive environment. And that march seemed to signify that you just kind of forgot about us. And that issue is not really one that's important to you, or it's just much lower on the priority chart, right? We want to be higher in the pecking order when it comes to the priorities in this country. And until we can do that, look, it's not just, black people that feel minimized. You have Asian families that feel minimized. You have Latino families that feel minimized. You have South Asian, Indian families that feel minimized. Native American families that feel minimized. So we have to include everyone in our messaging for change, right? Because when we talk about change in America, we're talking about changing the way we perceive each other, the way we look at each other, the way we interact with each other, right? I got to stop getting followed around. I've had a pretty good career in television news. You don't need to follow me around the Walmart or when I used to go to Target. You don't need to follow me around the Home Depot. I'm not trying to throw something in my jacket and run out. I'll never forget the time I was working in Atlanta and I was in a Home Depot and buying a bathtub. And the manager of the store followed me to my car and asked me for the receipt. And people don't understand what that feels like. I'm remodeling my basement, in a beautiful home, in a beautiful neighborhood, in a beautiful suburb of Atlanta. And this guy thinks I'm stealing a bathtub and walking out the front door with it.
Only in America.
Right. So that's the kind of change we're talking. Now, I know it doesn't happen.
Yeah, it has to be structural change. Like,
right.
No one's going to get inspired and excited about, yes, getting rid of Donald Trump is job one. Okay.
Right.
We get it. That has to happen. Right. But the MAGA movement's bigger than him. Yes. Right? The white supremacy movement and the power structure that built him and put him at the forefront has been there bubbling around for a while, and they just found their useful idiot and kind of, pathological lying savant who was able to get in the seat, right? And trigger the racism that was always there, just beneath the surface or around the corner.
Right.
So, yeah, it has to be structural change. It has to be talking about a more, not just saving democracy, but saving equality and fairness, has to come with it. Democracy is getting everyone to vote, which goes to the Voting Rights Act. Okay, yeah, that's least common denominator as an American citizen, as Americans. What's society going to be like? And that's why I said about if the pendulum swings so far one way, maybe it can swing back much further than it's ever gone back the other way. When we start looking at these things, like I said, Donald Trump treats white people like America's treated black people. So maybe people are getting hit with this, quote, unfairness.
Right.
And they're so upset by being treated unfairly that maybe it opens their eyes a little bit to how other people in this country have been sort of systematically treated unfairly. I'm hoping for that. But if we don't get better, more aggressive messaging around, I think these marches are going to fizzle out because a new energy isn't going to be brought to them. And it can't be the same old white people going out there every 3 weeks, right? It's going to be boring. Like our crowd was kind of boring. There wasn't much sizzle to the crowd. Like, I don't know how many times I don't want to go out and walk around with a bunch of old white people.
Right. And we need that diversity in leadership too, that diversity in thought. We need the parallels and the differences between Bernie and AOC, between Eric Swalwell and Jasmine Crockett. Like, we need that kind of diversity. We need the Cory Bookers, but we need the Jamie Raskins, right? We need the Adam Schiffs and we need the Maxwell Frost. We need that diversity in thought. We need the Ruben Gallegos. Like, we need all this diversity of thought to see, what inclusive leadership means, right? What an inclusive society entails. Now, I know that's hard to do when you're having 1,500 marches across the country, right? Some places are just going to be whiter than others, right? But at least you're making an attempt to bring everyone together. And in order to do that, you got to talk about the issues that plague them, right? You got to talk about mass incarceration. You got to talk about police reform. You got to talk about fairness and equity in pay. You got to talk about the ability for us to ascend the corporate ladder. I saw a statistic this morning that my university, Howard University, has 19% enrollment black males because black men just are not going to college. There are as many others at Howard University as there are black males. Now let that sink in for a moment. This is a university that is busting at the seams with students. I mean, there's no more room and there's no place to build. And where are we going to get more dorm space? Because more people want to come here, but they're not black men, right? And now we're getting rid of the Department of Education. And where do most of our black males come from? The inner city. So we've got to get these, the wheels of justice need to turn in our communities, literally and figuratively. We need these programs that they're getting rid of, right? These federally funded programs. Let's talk about the simplicity of it all, right? Reduce school lunches, breakfast, right? That's provided. Some of these kids would not eat if it's not for these programs. These are the only meals some of these kids get. And we know there are better outcomes.
No one's gonna learn when you're hungry. When you're hungry, all you think about is eating.
Right.
Your mind can't get focusing on what's, 7 times
Exactly.
9 in, your third grade class when when your stomach's growling. I mean, these are basic issues. And this is where leadership matters.
Right.
Because leadership crafts a message. I mean, the message can be bottoms up also. I mean, I guess that's what we're trying to do, right? Is like trying to get the left to craft a message that's more inclusive and hits on the living room issues and doesn't just talk about the economics, right? Yeah, we start with tariffs. Yes, there's going to be more unemployment. Yes, there's income inequality. Yes, there's so many kitchen table issues that matter. But that's not your whole life, right? There's all these other issues, and America's not just America's not just capitalism, right? America's freedom and democracy. So that means there's all these other issues. How are we living our lives?
Right.
With each other in this country that is like really, the only melting pot country really in the world.
Right.
We're kind of failing at it, but there is an opportunity. Trump has brought an opportunity for cohesiveness, because at least we all know we have a common enemy.
Right.
We just don't know what it looks like, after Trump, and no one, and it just, no one's getting, not everyone, meaning, non-white America hasn't gotten inspired to join the fight because white America hasn't delivered a message that truly
unifies us. Right.
I shouldn't even say buy it, because it hasn't even been attempted yet to say, like, yeah, we're going to come out of this a more inclusive. We're going to come out of this pro-DEI. We're going to pressure companies we're going to incentivize companies to bring DEI back in a real way, right? We're going to bring back the Department of Education better than ever. we're gonna stop fear mongering, and we're gonna steamroll the fear mongers about crime on everything about mass incarceration in our justice system and cash bail and all these inequities that go on in justice. Like, we're going to address them when we get Trump and these white supremacists out of there. We're not just going to go, hey, come along with us. We want to get a MAGA light America. Make America MAGA light again, right? Like, that can't
And
be the message.
right. And Brock, do you suppose that this whole Let's Make America Dumb Again movement is all about something to do with making money? Because globally, we are falling so far behind when it comes to education. When we fall behind in education, when we're not creating educated young people, young leaders, young students, young leaders of tomorrow, we're not creating an educated workforce. Who's
But
going to help us compete
they,
globally down the road?
Look, the tech bros don't think you're going to need a workforce because they're going to AI everything and then replace everyone's jobs anyway. But of course, anytime you talk privatization, there's big money to be made on it, whether it's for-profit prisons or whether it's for-profit education, right? So you take the money out of the public schools and you put them in all these private schools. Not only do you make it more exclusive, so less people get a good education, meaning entitled white people are going to get a premium education, but you get all that money that was flowing to educate everybody, flowing to educate fewer people and to private companies instead of for the public good, right? If you privatize libraries, right, someone would make money off of it, right? They'd become bookstores instead, or
Right.
you'd be charging to take a book out. So, like, whenever you hear privatization, you know that there's some big money behind
it. No doubt. No doubt.
Social Security. Privatize Social Security.
Right.
Huge money behind it.
Right. And Bernie was beating up the Social Security administrator today saying, look, you've already acknowledged there was like a 1% error rate in Social Security. So 99.1 or whatever percent of the people who were supposed to be getting those checks were getting those. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Anyway, we've got action. We saw it in the protest. We got another one scheduled. Messaging, we're lacking. We are lacking. Leadership. It's not just one filibuster. I think Corey needs to be more visible. I think he needs to work in tandem with the rest of the leadership. I think it's all hands on deck. We need to see them all.
Bernie's doing a town hall tomorrow night on CNN. I might turn CNN on for the first time since the election.
Right.
To see, at least he's getting to sort of that mainstream audience. We'll see if he touches on race or if he just hits kitchen table and economics, or whether he takes that next step, whether AOC's maybe rubbed off on him a little bit and he does that messaging that maybe starts to connect and draw the attention of a broader, diverse audience.
Right.
We can't go, like, here's my take. What is it? April 6th today?
April 8th.
In 11 days, we can't have marches that are the same. We have to take a step forward. We have to get same or bigger numbers, but with a bigger message, more anger, more energy, more intimidating, more sense of purpose, more sense of urgency as each of these protests go along. But the crowd's got to be more diverse. We got to show a bigger, broader army that we're really together. Otherwise, I think Trump's just going to laugh at all of this shit. He's not going to care. He'll be out golfing again. Won't even notice it's going on until it gets overwhelming and louder.
Right. Right. All right. Let's keep it up. Let's keep the elbows up, as they say in Canada. Nobody really cares that Ovechkin broke Gretzky's record. You see Gretzky in the stands last weekend with Kash Patel?
No, I didn't see him at Cash Patel. So the Russian guy broke the Mac guy's record. Yeah, it wasn't really that.
With the FBI director. The FBI director cheering on the Russian hockey player with the Canadian dude that happens to like Trump. What a mess. What a mess. That's why I didn't watch any of it. I clipped somewhere. All right, bro. We'll get at it tomorrow.
Thanks, Mark.
Yes, sir. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.